Hey, what's up, everyone? I welcome you to the Gen Z Growth Lab podcast. And this is where we talk with the serious entrepreneurs who has used their proven tactics and strategies to take their agency to the next level. And I do get asked a lot of times from the audience where they say like how to grow an agency, how to generate leads for the agency as well. And it's kind of a tricky. If you're on a budget, you can always go about use the organic Facebook ads or organic basically Facebook stuff where post the value comments and all that. But if the budget is not kind of an issue, then I would highly suggest to go with the paid ads because paid ads are going to give you the best ROI on the things. And to discuss this thing more further and to have a more clarity about the things, today we have got one of an expert from experts.video, Jerry, with us. And just to let you all know, Jerry is the one who's been handling our Facebook ads as well, and he's giving like a tremendous results at the moment. So yes, I'm sure Jerry is going to spill all the beans today with us and going to bring in a lot of value on the table. So I'll welcome you on board, Jerry. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Thanks for having me on the show, Rohan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, that's great. It's a pleasure for us to actually have you up here because the kind of a knowledge you have showed me over the time, that's really great. All the kind of stuff about how to go about the power contents and that kind of things was great. And definitely we are going to talk about all these topics today. So before
Yeah.
we jump in, Jerry, tell us a bit about yourself. How you get into this digital marketing? Was that always be the thing, or you were working in something else? Then you switched to this digital marketing altogether after that?
Yeah. So I somehow have made it 20 years as an entrepreneur. This is my 20th year anniversary. And I almost see myself as now completely unemployable.
Oh,
My journey started off I won't go into the whole backstory because it was a long time ago, but my dad used to run a locksmith business in London. And I always had a dream to run my own business, but it was far easier just to jump on him and jump in with him, even though he really, really didn't want me to go into business with him. I almost like forced myself as his first employee.
yeah.
And we grew that business from one person to over 120 people and managed to cover the whole nation of England,
Mm-hmm.
from like Scotland all the way down to Portsmouth. And we grew that business essentially using paid ads.
Oh,
And it was the Yellow Pages that was my first traffic source. But then as Google became a thing, we were the first locksmith company, or one of the first locksmith companies in the country to actually go and use Google Ads back then. So I started using Google Ads to grow the business. And because, as you probably know, first to the market always helps, I called it lazy secretary syndrome, right, back then, which was if a secretary was too lazy to stand up and go and find the Yellow Pages, then there was this new thing called Google, and all they would do is open the web page and type in what they wanted because they were simply too lazy to go and find the real information, which at that time was held in Yellow Pages. So that's how I started with online ads. And ever since then, I've basically grown several companies of my own. And back in 2018, 2019, I started this company in the UK. And I decided to essentially help other business owners using my experience on how to essentially create what I call a flywheel. And a flywheel really is when you've got an input on one side and then it goes through whatever mechanism you have in the middle, and it comes out to generate more on the other side. So I believe that if you've got a business, then you have to have at least one, if not two, flywheels in your business in order to make sure that you've got a regular flow of leads. And coming from the business that I was in, it was very emergency. I need you right now. So there was no organic play. We had to be pay to play. So I always had it in my brain that the fastest route to money was to understand money math. And as soon as business owners start to understand money math, then suddenly it starts to make sense. So I'm sure you're probably thinking, what is money math, right?
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
Yeah. So it's one of my favorite topics, actually. And as soon as a business owner, I find, understands this concept, then everything else seems easier. And let me explain. Let's say, for example, you own an SEO agency, all right? And you're charging mid-ticket, so $250 to $500 is your ticket size. But because you provide an absolutely amazing service, that your lifetime value is approximately 18 months. So if it's 18 months and you're earning $500 a month, then the lifetime value of your client is $9,000. Now, what I learned early on in my career is if you could acquire a client for less than the lifetime value that that client was worth to you, then you will always remain profitable. So the question then becomes, if a client is worth $9,000 to you, how much are you actually prepared to pay to acquire that client? Now, this was a really new concept for me, especially as an owner of a locksmith company. Our transactions were sub $100, and our cost of a lead was $30. So how could you acquire a phone call, understand what the client needed to resolve their problem, turn up, go against your competition, yet still only charge $75? So there was a money math issue. Do you see that? If your leads are going to cost $30 and you need 3 leads, you've already spent $90 to acquire a client that's worth $75. So me and my dad were in trouble, because if we scaled up Yellow Pages, then we would be spending more to acquire a client than we were earning from it. So as Jay Abraham says, you've only got 3 ways to grow a company, right? And one of those ways is to sell more to your existing clients. So what we were willing to do is, if our first client was willing to spend $75 with us to get us to the door, then once we knew that we were at the door and we knew our skills, so we could get in that door within 30 seconds, then the next immediate natural step was to ask the client if they wanted a free security survey. Because we were the expert, we were a locksmith, we were already there at the door, and we'd shown that we could get into your house within 30 seconds. So the next natural step is fear. If he can do that, then so can anybody else. So we realized that, and then we would say, oh, you haven't got an alarm. Oh, you haven't got window locks. Oh, you haven't got a deadlock on the back door, or you haven't got a gate or a grill on your front door. And suddenly we took the lifetime value from $75 to over $700, 10xing our expectation. So once you understand money math, and if you think of it back down to our agency model, then if you know that you're going to acquire a customer and it's worth $9,000 to you, then doesn't it make sense, if you wanted 10 of them, then if you were only willing to spend $4,500 to acquire that one client, then it made money math sense that you could spend $45,000 to get 10 of these clients with a very high likelihood that you would get $90,000 back. So that was the money math.
Yep.
But the problem then occurred is that, yeah, I can go and acquire a client for $45,000, but then I've got to maintain that for like another 18 months.
True. Because
right? Before you actually
go away.
Yeah, and like you still have to pay salaries, you still have to pay your overheads, you have to pay your account managers, and you still have to acquire new customers every month.
Exactly.
So then that becomes difficult. Even though your money math on paper makes sense, right? It's logically not going to be possible unless you narrow or you lower your expectations.
Exactly.
Now, if I say to you, okay, you haven't got $45,000, but have you got $4,500 to acquire one customer to pay you $500 a month? The cost of acquisition is still very, very high. And most of your listeners would be probably thinking, no way.
Yep.
So over the years, I got challenged with this against money math. So I was starting to think like, okay, maybe they're right. Maybe it doesn't work, right? But then what the world that I was coming from was, hey, I need a locksmith, therefore I need you now. And I realized that that was a type of ad which we call direct ads. That in the world of marketing, as you know, Rohin, that's what we describe as direct response.
Yes, true.
And that's where my discovery of the love of the marketing started from, because somehow I had made 10x on my acquisition cost and made it work on a $65 product front end, but was selling $700 on the back end. If I could figure out that there was a mechanism to do that with every single business that not only I owned, but also now my clients owned, then suddenly that was the ticket to making money.
Yep.
And that's how I started my journey with my agency.
Yeah, no. So what kind of clients do you have at the moment? Is it like a B2B, B2C, agencies? What kind of clients, or I could say like you love working with?
So there's really two types of clients that I look for. All right. One that has a really high lifetime value. So an SEO agency, that's good. Yep. And we have to say that first of all. And if if you're not good, then you definitely need a good white label agency behind you, right? If you have a good service, then one, you're looking for a good lifetime value. That's the first thing. Yep. Or the second thing is that you have a high ticket offer.
True.
So in the world of normal traditional businesses, I've worked with the legal space. So lawyers in North America that spend anything from $1,000 to $1 million a month. So once again, in the American market, there are lots of subdivisions within the legal industry. So you have personal injury, you have family law, you have all these different factions of law, and you have to approach each acquisition of a client differently. Yep. So I spent the last 4 or 5 years working with lawyers, but also I went and grew my own businesses at the same time. So I had this natural curiosity to apply what I was learning to not only my clients, but also my friends. And my friends had various different types of businesses. And that's when I discovered that I really, really liked helping people. So recently, in the last year or so, I've been working with other agencies, I've been working with coaches, I've been working with B2C clients and B2B clients, only because I've also been honing up on my own skills and working with my own mentors and my own coaches. So I have continued that journey, and as I've started to learn more and apply it to different industries, I'm learning that this methodology that we're implementing can be applied to almost anything. And that is the whole purpose of budget ads. And I think that whilst we're on the topic of client acquisition, it's really important to say that you don't have to spend the most to acquire a client. You just have to be there the longest. And some of my law firm clients used to tell me that they don't need digital marketing because they've booked out the billboards for 10 years. And that's true, right? Billboards still work, right? They're the most expensive type of advertising in today's world, but they work in a B2C, in a B2C environment like the law in America. But having said that, as an agency, it's very difficult. It's very different. You wouldn't see an SEO agency putting a billboard up. It's B2B. But having said that, we've seen this with sleep training. We've seen this with agencies. We've seen this with hypnotherapists. We've seen it with even products as well. So people selling high-ticket products or even low-ticket products, but once again, a high lifetime value with a recurring income or something like that on the back end does very well like this.
All right. And yeah, Jerry, you've told me a lot about like power content, like what the power content and how to best use it. So for the audience who doesn't know it, just tell a bit about what is the power content and how those principles of power content, how is it going to be different from the direct ads as well?
Yeah. So we've already talked about what a direct ad is, right? A direct ad is, hey, raise your hand if you want my thing, right? We see those direct ads all the time, okay? But if we look at the behaviors of the corporate brands like Nike or Adidas or like any kind of luxury lifestyle brand, you will never see ads from them saying, hey, buy my stuff right now. And mentors of mine, Laurel Portier and other people, there's a whole vast of people that have studied this kind of advertising and different forms of advertising from a psychological point of view. And we started to understand that there was a resistance to direct ads. Because as you know, most direct ads nowadays, especially online, will ask you to click on the button, take your name, phone number, email address, and let me ask you, Rohan, do you think that people today, do you think that they know what the next step is after they've put in their name, phone number, email address? Do you think that's true, that they know what's going to happen?
Oh yeah, pretty much they all know like they're gonna get smashed with a lot of emails and selling their products. So this is kind of a bitter truth of this industry is.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of Facebook ads agencies and direct response agencies are competing with SEO agencies, and the SEO agencies are almost saying the same thing. The cost of advertising is going up. The acquisition cost of acquiring a new lead is going up. And there is the resistance of your audience because they are getting fully aware of what happens after they enter their name, phone number, email address. So we already know as marketeers that it takes you a minimum of 8 to 10 touches to get someone's attention and get their information and start having a conversation. So now with this resistance, what does that do to the direct ad? Well, many years ago, we realized that the direct ad was only applicable to 3% of any market. And that was years back.
Yep.
So if we now say that people are more resistant to direct ads are becoming more expensive, then the effectiveness of a direct ad could be argued is one, really expensive, two, less effective. So as a brand that doesn't have Nike's budget, what's the hack? Well, up till now, over the last 20 years, the direct ad worked because even if it was 3% that people were taking action, companies like Google, Facebook, they had to teach us how to advertise on there first. So the cost of advertising was very low.
Yep.
And then slowly the CPMs went up. The clicks became more expensive. Robots starting coming in. There was an influx of knowledge workers from all over the world. You had people not just from the West getting involved, from the East, from China, from the Philippines, from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. These people who were never able to compete on the market were suddenly competing.
Exactly.
There was
right.
much more noise.
And overall CPM has gone up in that case as well, more expensive.
Absolutely. Because there's people that are not American suddenly competing in an American market. And before, if you wanted to do that, then you needed to have cash. Because if you wanted to export from India to America, you needed to have the money and the capital to invest in a container.
Exactly.
You needed to do the traditional routes of business. And suddenly, now we're able to sell our knowledge. Oh my God, like what did that do to the industry, like globally, right?
Yep.
That's why people like me and you have what we have today because of that. But by us jumping into that market, it made it more noisy and less effective. So I'm not saying that the direct ad doesn't work today. I'm just saying that it's more expensive. And knowing that if you say, oh, I'm going to teach you this, in return for your name, email, phone number, address, there's going to be slight resistance because you know as a consumer that person who served that ad to you has probably got an appointment setter or somebody on the other side just waiting for you to do exactly what they're asking you to do, and then your phone blows up, right? And now the mother with the 3-year-old will never fill in that form because she's got to look after a 3-year-old. The busy doctor will never fill in that form because he's got patients to see. And the person that simply just distrusts you because they don't know you, they don't like you, they have no reason to like you, and geez, you just appeared on my screen for the first time and you're asking me to click on an ad and speak to you. I don't know you.
Yep.
So what do?
We need to nurture them up in a different fashion then. It's probably be like giving them the value content first before actually asking them for the details. That's my understanding actually says.
Yes, exactly. But you kind of gave away the little secret sauce there, Rohan. So for those of you who are watching or have been watching, you've started to see VSLs pop up. You've started to see webinars pop up. You've started to see content come up on YouTube for free. People like Alex Hormozy dropping like content like it's no tomorrow, spending $50,000 to $100,000 a month on organic content. Like, how's a person like me supposed to compete with that? And that's probably what everyone is listening to this for, because somehow or another, we figured out that if you could place all the material for somebody to know, like, and trust you, prior to asking them to pick up the phone, prior to asking them to enter their email address, prior to blowing up their phone, and actually keep true to your word and deliver value.
True.
So if you look at why YouTube is literally the second largest search engine in the world today, it's because when I ask it a question, it gives me an ungated response, except for a few ads here and there.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
So if we apply those concepts to ads, then, and we completely move away from the direct response ad, let me ask you this. If you were a dentist that said, hey, come and buy Invisalign right now, or a dentist that gave you 3 tips on jaw exercises to try and straighten your teeth naturally, or to teach your children these exercises to prevent braces from being a necessity in the future, which one do you think that Google or Facebook or any other platform is going to charge you more for? And without answering the question, like specifically, let's just think about that. Google, Facebook know that you're going to try and charge $5,000 to that mother of that child who has got crooked teeth, and you're saying, come into my office and I'll fix your kid's teeth for you in exchange for $5,000, versus Google and Facebook charging the dentist who's going to give free value on the internet that keeps people on the platform. Which one's going to be costing more?
Oh, that's the first one, who is really saying, hey, come and purchase my stuff. So they're probably going to say that they're trying to make money, so let's make money from them too.
Yeah. So now people say, well, that's unfair. Well, hold on. Let me ask you this. Would you or would you not expect to pay more rent if your shop had more traffic flowing on it than if your shop was in a back alley in the village?
Oh,
which one's going to charge?
Of course, we're going to pay more to them who is actually having a more traffic coming to their place.
Yeah, because the landlord knows that this guy is going to be selling his goods and he's going to make a profit. So if he's going to make a profit, then the building's mine.
True.
Like, he's sitting in my building making money. Do you think the landlord's going to sit there and go, oh, yeah, sure, Rohin, you keep on making money and I'll just keep on charging you a small little amount of rent, the same as the rent that I charge back in, in the suburbs?
Yep, yeah, makes sense. So yeah,
right.
The search engines or Facebook works in a very similar fashion as well. But Jerry, I mean, like I've spoken with a lot of people on the same concept as well, and they say like, hey, if you're gonna start spinning out the beans like in a free everywhere, like who gonna come and purchase our courses? Or this is one of a common factor what the coaches have got. They say, oh, why would we do it? I mean, like it's okay to pitch the people with some content, but we cannot really give it all the content for free as what Alex Hormozy he did. He just said like, okay, just take everything from me. Just go and do it yourself. So what do you think about that kind of a fear among the people?
It's a very good question, first of all, because it's relevant, right?
Yes.
And it's a topic of conversation that's going round and round and round, right? But let me ask you this, Rohin, if I gave you step-by-step instructions on how to fix your neighbor's heart condition, and I'm going to tell you exactly where to poke the hole, I'm going to tell you exactly where to snip, and exactly where to clamp the blood supply so the guy doesn't bleed out, Don't worry, I'm going to show you everything.
Yeah. That's a good catch. Yeah, yeah. No one would take the risk, especially the business owners. I mean, like Jerry, the business owners, they feel like, hey, we are the business owners and we are here to do the business. And this is your stuff. You do it. I understand your concept. I completely agree with that as well. Like the giving the more value, it's kind of a trust factor and kind of a authority we are building the among the others. And saying, for example, you're a good example as well. I got to know about yourself. I watched some of your stuff, and I said, like, no, this guy knows a lot more better than me. I know Facebook myself too, but I said, like, no, this guy can help me out to do a lot of things no matter what, is giving me the step by step action plan, which you did it, I remember, on the very first day when we had a call together. So yes, that do agree. And I completely agree with you as well. Like the no matter how much the step by step we're gonna give it to the people, they still want their things or the business to be in the hands of someone who has got a better expertise into the things.
Yeah. And we also always say, the best entrepreneurs are the best generalists, right?
Yep.
Like if you were an absolutely amazing like machine engineer, then you could only produce the output of your own output.
Yes.
So even if you knew how to do Facebook ads, and I gave that person 1,000 new customers
Mhm.
tomorrow, he hasn't figured out his scaling methodology of his own business on how
Exactly.
to go from producing 15 widgets a day to now needing to produce 1,000 widgets a day.
Exactly.
So we always forget that business owners have their own concerns about their own businesses. Yes, the wood merchant needs to sell more wood, but he
Yes.
also has to manage his suppliers. He needs to
Yep.
make sure that there's enough trees being cut. He needs to make sure that his trucks are working. He needs to keep an eye on fuel prices. He needs to make sure that his mechanics have got all the machines working. And then he needs to figure out the schedule that when his load comes in, there's going to be a crane operator to ready to unload those vehicles. And you
Yep.
think that just because he knows how to run Facebook ads or SEO or any other technical thing, that he's not going to hire you, but do it himself?
Yep.
No.
Oh, no.
It doesn't make sense when you put it like that, right? But as a knowledge worker, it's really easy to think, oh, if I give my knowledge away, then that's the only thing I have. The wood merchant will always have his wood. And unless another wood merchant has the same or better wood, there's no competition.
Yep. Yep. True. And especially in the knowledge world, the things doesn't work this way because there is a continuous learnings and the testing and experiences getting built up. So yes, I think you have answered it really spot on. So
Well, I
Jerry,
think also the
yep.
the other thing to note, Rohin, is that you know you touched on it before. Our content is essentially using your knowledge to be able to earn the know, like, and trust factor before asking anything of the viewer.
Yep. All right.
So it's essentially earning the know, trust, like factor. All right. So if you watch somebody's stuff and you think, oh, that makes sense, then now you like them, you trust them because it makes sense, and you know that they know stuff better than you in the field that you're having a challenge with. And it's much easier to have a conversation with them. Not only that, but you as the advertiser also know that when you do put up a direct offer, then there's no question of whether the person likes you, knows you, and trusts you. Now it's a
Yep.
question of, well, do you like each other enough to work together? Is it cost effective? And do you believe that that individual can get you the same results that you may have seen before?
Yep. Got it.
So for us, the whole purpose of using power content is to ensure that we can use budget ads to be visible in front of our perfect ideal audience and not to have to compete against our competition and convince the person while on the phone. In fact, we convince them that we're the right people to work with before they've even entered their name, phone number, email address.
Yep, true, true. So budget ads to say, I mean, like, so if we are going to use the power content as a complete principle of running the ads, how the budget ads gonna fit in them? Is that because by the time all these CPM costs are going high, those $5, $10 ad sets are not really working these days, as what most of the people actually say. What do you think about it? And or I could ask the question in a different way. So for someone who is actually starting out, who has started an agency, or they have got some decent kind of a budget to spend on the ads as well. So they're coming to you, for example, Jerry, you're going to actually organize a call with them. You're going to tell them about, like, hey, how I'm going to use your knowledge and how going to use your existing budget and to give you the results. How the complete process will be taking this hypothetical scenario.
Okay, great question. First of all, if we go back to the conversation that direct ads cost more, then the opposite of that is that video ads cost less. Because with a video view ad, you're telling Facebook that I want to optimize this video, I want to optimize this ad for people that watch videos. I don't want to optimize for people that click buttons or buy online or shop online. I don't want any of that, because we know that Google, Facebook, and the rest of them are going to charge us a lot of money for that kind of targeting. So what we want to do is we want to select video views as an objective. And then all we want to do is spread our message and our methodology to as many people as will listen. And we do that by, first of all, good targeting. But if you're going to tell me, well, agency owners or my target audience is really difficult to target, then how do I do that? Well, we use copywriting and hooks to do that within video. But before we go into what that means, let's stick with the whole point of how do you get a budget ad to work?
Yep.
If we're not going to spend the money on conversion ads, which are expensive, as we said, then all we're going to do is load videos that explain our process, help the viewer to earn, so that we can earn the know, like, and trust factor, but by placing a 3 to 5 minute video on essentially my topic of expertise and putting it out there. And then knowing that anyone that watches at least 25% or 30% of that video is going to have some sort of relevancy to my content. So how do we know that? And how can we apply it to something completely different from agencies? Because at the end of the day, people could say, oh, we've been talking about agencies all day long. Let's bring up another example. So if you were a physical trainer, then the example of a direct offer is, hey, I will give you 10 sessions at 30% discount. All you've got to do is come into the office and we'll give you a free evaluation. That's a direct offer. And that person knows that as soon as I've typed in the name, phone number, email address, Dr. Cairo is coming after you, right? So instead of that, what does Dr. Cairo do instead of paying for extremely expensive ads? Because he knows that Dr. Cairo around the corner and around the other corner and down the road and across the street, they're all doing that. So now I have to compete with them. And it's like, well, how do I do that? So then it's like, okay, Well, we got to come up with a different strategy. The different strategy is we're going to use video views, and instead of essentially teaching people after they've paid me, I'm going to give them 3 or 4 exercises, teach them exactly my methodology and how they can do it at home.
Yes.
And suddenly, my 3 to 5 minute video is, hey, if you're suffering from back pain, then in the next 2 minutes, I'm going to share with you 3 strategies that can give you instant relief and prevent you from going to the chiropractor this week. There's no call to action. There's no name, phone number, email address. And suddenly, Mrs. Jones, who's got the bad back, watches it. Mr. Smith, Mr. Smith watches it, but not only does he watch it, but he also sends it to his wife.
Yes, true. Very true.
All the barriers of a sales conversation dissipate into thin air.
Yep. True.
Because have you ever been in a country, Rohan, where you're sitting in a car and you're sitting in traffic and someone comes on and knocks on the window and tries to sell you something? Have you ever been in a country like that?
Numerous times. That's very common in India.
Right. And what is 90% of people's reaction when they see that person walking and approaching the car to come and sell them something? What are they going to do?
No. It's something,
No.
I don't need it.
And immediately wind up the window, right?
Wind up the windows, yes.
So think about it metaphorically. When someone tries to approach you and they don't know you, like you, and trust you, you're metaphorically sitting in the middle of your car, winding up the windows.
Yes.
And you're saying, no. Right? But if you were a palm reader, and in 20 seconds, you could walk up to a window and say, hey, madam, don't turn left at the next traffic lights, because then there might be something bad awaiting you. Make sure you take the 3rd left. And you take the 3rd left, and historically you realize that there was an accident on the 1st left that she avoided, but she didn't ask you for money. She didn't ask you for anything. 3 days later, you see her and she tells you another thing. She still doesn't ask you for anything.
Yes.
She says, today, make sure you have a good lunch. And then it hits 4 o'clock and your boss walks in and tells you you're working late. And you're like, oh my goodness. You think of that woman and you're like, that's twice now she's helped me. She still hasn't asked me for money.
Yes.
Now, the 3rd time, a month later, you're sitting there and you've got something in your mind. You're like, oh, I've got a big deal coming up and I don't know if I'm going to make it or not. And you're sitting at that traffic lights and that lady, you see that lady again, all right? Now, she's the palm reader. She's already helped you twice. And you say to her, this time, you call her. You say, yo, let me speak to you quickly. And you say, hey, I've got a big deal coming up. And I know that you've already helped me. Do you think you can help me guide on how I can win this next deal? At that point, if that lady turns around to you and says, sure, I can, but would you mind just giving me a little something? What do you think you're going to say?
Oh, yes. That's being honest to you.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Because immediately you've just said, hey, I know you. I like you. I trust you. I've been watching your power content for the 1st time. It worked. I watched your power content for the 2nd time. It worked. And now I really need you, where I know that there's going to be a massive transformation, whether you're Mr. Cairo and you're going to help me with my bad back, or whether you're the mind reader or the palm reader and you're going to help me close this big deal, then suddenly you understand how power content plays the place in today's society, where we need to know, like, and trust our vendors and the people that we're intending to pay money with before we start interacting with them.
Exactly right. No, it's actually a very good explanation you have given it for the power content, man. Even a newbie without any knowledge, they can even understand how important it is in today's world, especially in this online world where we can't really meet someone in person all the time, to actually start giving them more the content. Because I'll tell you, Jerry, this is something people actually struggle for. All their time, their years pass on and they keep on struggling to get their leads, and they don't really understand because they are going with their direct ads. It could be the direct ads or it could be the direct pitch, both ways. So but giving the value first, the people start owing you for that. So if someone who is watching this and they can understand this concept, I don't think so, if you got a knowledge, if you're giving that the knowledge for free to someone for some time, and after then we're gonna start pitching them out when they are actually in a need, the leads should not be a problem at all. And mixing that thing up with paid media gonna take the whole thing to the next level.
Exactly. Like, if you think of organic content as content that is there to attract attention, that's what we produce organic content for. And now let me switch it and say, make your organic content ready to serve your ideal client. And then all you do is think of paid ads not as an advert, but as increasing reach. Right?
Yes.
So really, it's like, I'm not going to bother with organic content, because all the SEO agencies, you know how long it takes for organic content to work. That's why you're in business. But if you take that organic content, I think of it as an AK-47, right? If you've got an AK-47 and you've got 1,000 followers, then you're basically shooting into 1,000 people. But you don't know who those 1,000 people are, and they're a mix of lots of different type of people. But with paid ads, it's almost like you can take that organic content and stop it from being an AK-47 and just shooting into the crowd, and now point it exactly at your ideal content, ideal audience.
True.
And now you know, even if you're spending $5 on a video view ad, but you're targeting it at chiropractors, then even if you were spending $5, that's $5 worth it, because suddenly 800 chiropractors listen to your message.
Yeah, because if you try to go with this $5 or $10 kind of an ad sets and use it for the direct media, it's probably going to chew up very quickly in few impressions only. But you're saying, like, with the budget ads, if you're using the same power content, but if we are going to use it this time with this $5 kind of an ad, we can still get a lot of reach via video views. Is that what you mean?
Exactly. Like, there is no comparison cost, right? Because first of all, it works for you on a psychological base.
Yes.
Viewer immediately knows that you're not there selling, you're giving. So if somebody is not selling and they're approaching the vehicle, you're not winding the windows up immediately. There's no psychology to say, I'm going to wind up my windows. So your windows are down, you're now listening. Now your ears are open. So we've done the psychology bit. Now we've got to convince them that what we're going to give you is valuable. Now, once we've done that, that's from our content and from us being experts on what we do. Now, if you're an SEO agency, that could be how to get into the 3-pack. That could be how to make sure that you rank within the first page, right? And I'm sure you've heard all the different kinds of values that you can give as an SEO agency. That's my job here, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
So once you've done that, once you've done that and you've given the information for free, you can then say, okay, that's great. Now, anyone that's ready to learn more from you, well, the least that they're going to do is follow you. Secondly, the platforms are going to tell you that that person has already watched 25% of that first video. So you can retarget them with an offer. And that is how we turn power content into power offers that actually get us an actual return on investment. Because the natural step, I'm sure all your viewers are probably thinking, okay, this is all well and good doing power content, and I get that, but how does it turn into money? Well, let me ask you this. If you only served a direct offer to people that knew that they could be helped by your system, i.e. people that have watched at least 25% of the power content video, then one, your direct offer now is only being served to a very small percentage of people. And even though it's expensive, you are retargeting your existing audience with an offer that is cheap. So you can actually create a direct offer ad for only up to $2 or $5 a day. And it still converts.
And that's I remember you helped us with that too, like how important it is to have a cross selling, a cross platform selling. So let's say someone is watching all these videos and all that, and but they are not really taking any kind of an action, but we can always go and we can retarget them on LinkedIn or maybe on Twitter or maybe on Google as well. So this is how we can take the max out of those budget ads as well. And so that's pretty good. One of a question, I think there are two more questions I want to go with only, Jerry. That's one of the thing is obviously the tracking. Like I remember there was the same problem we were having in our agency where you are helping to get this sorted, and a lot of time people, they do not know where the traffic is coming from, and they're just thinking like, hey, my ads are running very great, but maybe the traffic is coming via the organic way, you know what I mean, or maybe it's coming via the word of mouth or referrals and all that. So what should be the best way to handle that kind of scenario so that we should be knowing where the traffic is coming in? And is that really going to help much with the Facebook learning curve as well, especially because after this iOS 14 thing?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. Tracking is something that is constantly changing. And it's one of those really boring subjects that it's not sexy. We're not talking about hooks or offers or ads, and there's no massive ROI. But let me ask you this. If you had 5 different traffic sources and you knew that you were getting a 5-to-1 return on your ad spend, but you didn't know which source it was coming from, then in theory, 40% or 80% of your ads could not be working and 20% could, and that could be responsible for all your ROI. So the question is, what do I do? Well, the first thing is, can you imagine that you were living in your house and you went to the bathroom and opened up the tap expecting water to come out, and it doesn't happen? That's exactly what would happen if you didn't have your plumbing correct. Right? If your plumbing wasn't right in your house, then sometimes your tap's going to work, sometimes it's not.
Yes.
Now, if you didn't have markers in your plumbing around your house that this is the cold water pipe, this is the hot water pipe, and this comes from the boiler, and this comes from the mains and all that, then how are you going to know where the blockage is? Why is my tap not working?
Yes, true.
It would be a nightmare to try and figure out where the blockage is, right?
A proper tracking is required in the case.
And that is exactly why tracking is so important in your business, because you could have a blockage or you could have hot water coming from 5 sources. And when you turn off one source, well, the water's still hot. Well, I thought I turned off the hot water. Well, you've got 3 other sources of hot water coming in. So if you don't have your digital plumbing sorted, then you could have hot water or hot leads coming from Google Organic. They could be coming from YouTube. They could be coming from Facebook. And you don't even know this, but your assistant has been posting viral videos on TikTok, and that has an organic link in bio to your main agency page, and that is actually where your traffic is coming from.
Yep. So
So
we're just happy, like, hey, we're getting a lot of traffic and all that, but we don't have a proper way to track them as well. I guess that's where you guys stress a lot for any clients who've been using it. Hey, go with a proper tracking system, pixels, UTMs, and all that, because that's what I understand. I can relate it for my business as well. Like, how important it is sometimes to actually track where the numbers or where the actual leads are coming in, or where even the customers are coming in. And then we can have more budget allocated maybe on that particular platform rather than kind of a guesswork. Hey, let's put something everywhere. You know what I mean? Especially it's possible in the digital world, if not in the offline.
Yeah, I mean, like, imagine if you have a good running business, right? Today, you've got leads coming in. If tomorrow that lead source dries up and you don't know where that lead source was coming from in the first place, you can't go and replicate it.
True.
So imagine going fishing, not knowing what bait you're using. Well, if you don't know what bait you're using, you can't replicate that results in another part of the lake.
Exactly.
So it's really important to know the tracking. And what we use, if you're wondering, how do I do that? What is, my brain? Because I have, what is my central knowledge base? I have TikTok ads, I have Facebook ads. And if you're a mature agency, then you're spending $10,000, but you're, doing $150,000 in revenue. You're happy spending that $10,000. But it was Henry Ford that said famously that I know 50% of my marketing is working. I just don't know which 50%.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't know which 50% is working as a digital agency, then by that example, you could be spending $10,000 and $5,000 could be wasted. So is it really important to know where your leads and your traffic flow is coming from? Absolutely.
Yes. Yep. No, that's makes sense. That's exactly very important to have a proper system in place to track the things. And the very final question for the day, Jerry, if you don't mind sharing, is the KPIs, because we understand, like, most of time the people they take the ROAS as a KPI. I don't know, what do you guys take in consideration for the videos when running the ads, or as an overall as well? Because maybe understanding the KPIs, you might gonna say, as a layman, maybe we can say, okay, the ads are not working. But maybe you can look it in a different direction. You're gonna say, hey, maybe the ads are not working at the moment, because I understand the ROS is different, but maybe it probably gonna work next month because I can see some signals triggering in. So a bit about the KPIs, like what kind of things do you try to measure for the Facebook ads, especially with the power content, I would say.
Yeah, it's a great question, because if you don't have a call to action, then it's really difficult to measure actions on an ad if you're not tracking it. So once again, it comes down to the structure of the ad and how you structure power content. So first of all, to answer your question properly, if you're running power content with an objective of video views, then and then the second step is to retarget people who have watched 25%, then the first KPI that we're looking for is how many people watched the video, and out of how many people that watched the video, how many of those people watched 25%?
Yes.
Now, this is where it can get quite complex. And unless you have 3 or 4 different videos, it's very difficult without comparison.
Yep.
So, and the reason why it's very difficult without comparison is because there are so many data points on one video. You have the hook, which is within the first frame or within the first 1 to 3 seconds.
Yep.
Then you have the hold rate, which is how many of the people that are watching the video are actually watching a large proportion of it, which tells you 2 things. 1, your targeting is right or not. And secondly, the value of your content is good enough or not.
Yes.
Thirdly, it could be the hook rate, i.e. you haven't called out the audience. So that's like the chiropractor not saying, hey, do you have a bad back, but just talking to the whole of his town, right? So if the chiropractor said, hey, are you a parent? And every parent started watching it, then yes, your stats are going to be awesome because your hook rate called out parents, and guess what? Parents started watching it. But your hold rate was 3% because by the time they got to 20 seconds, they realized your video was about bad backs and they didn't have a bad back. So even though you were a parent and you started watching the video, but because you didn't have a bad back, then you didn't continue watching the video. So as an analyst looking at why that video didn't work, well, the first thing I would say is you change one thing and you change that into, are you a parent with a bad back? And suddenly your audience becomes much smaller, but the people that actually watch 25% are now much more relevant.
Yes.
Which is 1, why $5 ads work. And 2, they only work if you place them in a particular ecosystem structured in a right way. So I just gave an example of a power content video that could on paper work, but the KPIs show that it's a great ad, but it results in 0 ROI because of one reason. So I know that I haven't answered your question fully, but that's because it is a much more complex topic. But to answer your question very simply, I would just say that don't judge power content until you've had at least 1,000 to 2,000 views on your content.
On the content. True.
Because otherwise the audience is so small that really you don't know, you haven't got enough data to understand whether it's working or not. And one of the most rookie examples that I've come across is people turning off their ads too soon because in their mind, they're spending money and they're getting no ROI. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. Otherwise, literally everyone would just do paid ads and no one would have, you know, any issues in the world and everything would work, right? But life doesn't work like that.
Yes, no, that's true. That's very true. And it's I guess it's really very important to keep testing out the different angles as well for the power content, because maybe one power content we feel like it's very good, and but in reality the people don't really get engaged with that. or maybe the other power content can actually work better. The only way we can figure out is, I guess, by continuous testing. And that's something you gave us kind of an action plan, I remember as well. Like, hey, go with the different hooks, a minimum of 3, and the more could be like 10 to 12 hooks on a different topics, because we don't know which hook can bring us more better targeted traffic as compared to the other. And I guess this is very much in the direct ads as well. In direct ads, sometimes we feel, hey, we have prepared one of the best creative in the world, but in reality, that creative doesn't work properly. And I've seen, trust me, I've seen this thing with some e-commerce clients as well. We feel like this particular product of yours, or even they think this product of ours is the best seller on in the offline store, but when they try the same thing online, it does not work, and the worst thing works much better to give them the results. So yes, I completely agree. I can relate every single thing with the stuff we are doing at the moment, Jerry. That was wonderful. That was actually wonderful. And the final thing, if the people wants to know about you, the people want to touch base with yourself, what the best way for it? Is that you got some kind of like a contact form or your email? What is the best way to contact you in that case?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. I'm on Jerry Jariwalla, on Instagram, Jerry Jariwalla, the same thing. And also on Facebook. You can reach out to me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or you literally go to experts.video and you can just fill in a contact form on there. We offer lots of different services to help lots of different types of businesses. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I'll put your Facebook basically URL in the description of the YouTube video as well. Oh,
Fantastic.
can't imagine, man. It's more than an hour. I'm like the time just flew up so quickly. And thanks for that, Jerry. I really appreciate your time today, sir. And trust me, every single thing, every single minute was so much engaging. In fact, after so many things, I learned a lot of things from yourself as well. And so I probably need to get you again on a call, man. Very important. No, thanks for that, Jerry.
No,
Thanks a lot for
it's
it.
really nice of you to say so, Rohan. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and share something with your audience. I think what you do in your business and why you're doing this show is extremely selfless, helping other agency owners like get ahead in the game. And that says a lot about you. So I really appreciate the opportunity and thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks. Bye-bye.